A flight attendant was holding a man by the legs outside a flying aircraft. The wind was so powerful that they could not pull him back inside. Letting him go was not an option either. Nobody in the cockpit could tell whether he was still alive, but the crew kept holding him as the aircraft continued flying with an open cockpit window. And behind them was a cabin full of passengers who did not yet know who the man outside really was. It began on June 10, 1990. Flight 5390 departed Birmingham for Malaga, Spain. On board were 81 passengers and 6 crew members. The aircraft climbed normally. Cabin service was being prepared, and nothing inside the cockpit suggested that anything was wrong. Then, about 13 minutes after takeoff, there was a sudden bang. One of the cockpit windscreen panels suddenly separated from the aircraft. Air rushed through the opening with enormous force. The cockpit filled with noise, loose objects were thrown around, and one of the pilots was pulled toward the missing window. Flight attendant Nigel Ogden was nearby and managed to grab the man by the legs. The upper part of his body was already outside the aircraft, and the other pilot was suddenly left alone at the controls. The man outside the window was the captain, Tim Lancaster. The wind made communication almost impossible. The aircraft was descending rapidly, while First Officer Alistair Atchison tried to fly, contact air traffic control, and find a suitable airport. The cabin crew took turns holding the captain. For a long time he did not appear to move, and some of the crew feared that there was nobody left to save, but they still could not let him go. The first officer diverted the aircraft to Southampton. Only minutes remained before landing. Wind roared through the cockpit. The crew continued holding the captain, and 81 passengers still had to be brought safely to the ground. Finally, the wheels touched the runway. The aircraft stopped, emergency crews reached the cockpit, and only then did everyone learn the answer to the main question. Tim Lancaster was alive. Everyone else on board survived as well, but investigators still had to discover why the windscreen had left the aircraft. It had been replaced only 27 hours before the flight. 90 fasteners were used, but none matched the required specification. Most were too narrow, while the remaining ones were too short. As the aircraft climbed, the difference in pressure forced the windscreen outward. The aircraft almost lost its captain not because of a storm, a bird strike, or an engine failure, but because of a set of incorrectly selected fasteners.